Shalom, shalom. Welcome back. Genesis 49ers with another video, quick video. I know it's been a long time, been on hiatus for a minute, but real life happens and things happen outside of YouTube. But we're here, we're back, and I wanted to come with a video today touching on Africa. And I want to touch on Africa because for some reason, well, I'm not going to say some reason. The reason is known that majority of our people that are melanated here in the United States of America, or throughout the Americas, shall I say, think that they are African, or they think that anything that is Negroid or dark skin or melanin is African, even though you have Dravidians that are not in Africa, they are in East India. You have Ashkenazi Negroes, right, that's in Russia, okay? You have Negroes that are in various places, okay, ancient and modern, okay. You have the Scots. In the 1800s, you had a lot of native black men that they would call wild and black as the Native living through Scotland, okay, in the British Isles, just in the 1800s. Because if you understand something, there's a period in time under Britain, during the Britain Empire in the 1700s, called the Pretenders. And during this period of time of the Pretenders, they were getting rid of the black clergy and the black leaders and kings and royalty, the pedigree that was ruling over there, and they was exiling them and putting them out of the king role. That's why you don't have Charles and King James, and you see that those were actually dark-skinned, melanated people that were actually Jacobites, meaning Israelites, during that time. But they were removed, and you find in history during the 1800s that you see all these black people being in the British Isles and Scotland. But nonetheless, that's going off topic. But I want to bring up this topic about Africa because maybe the viewer, the laity, you think Africa is everything Negroid, and everything about Africa has always been Negroid, and anything that pertains to Negroes go back to Africa. Some of y'all believe in the theory, I say theory, that the oldest bones are from Africa or life started in Africa. You believe that because you follow secular science and you think that is an exact science when they tell you that's a theory. They theorize that. They don't prove that. If we follow the biblical narrative and we follow what's found in records, what's found in anthropology, the study of ancient civilizations, you can clearly see that life starts in Mesopotamia. But no, we don't want to go off that. You want to go off your little guessing game called secular science. You want to go off of what you learned in school. This broken education system. I think this country is 18th in the world. It's one of the worst education systems in the world. But you want to go off of their knowledge, their wisdom. You have fun with that. But here on Genesis 49ers, we're going to give you tangible proofs. We're going to give you sources. We're going to show you exactly where we're getting this stuff from, so you can the viewer at home, can make a concise decision on what is the truth. Now, we're dealing with Africa, and as I stated before, black melanated people here in America or in the Americas think that Africa is their homeland. Okay, if they maybe Trinidadian, Haitian, some Puerto Ricans, some Afro-Mexicans, they might think that they come from Africa because what's been taught in the secular school system and what they've been brainwashed to believe. Well, we're here to re-brainwash, and what I mean by that is clean all of the filth out of your mind. So let's deal with Africa, and this is from a book called Ancient History by Anthony Lau, right? Ancient History by Anthony Lau. It's a revised chronology and an updated revision of something volume 1. But you can look this up on Google Books, ebooks. It's $8. But I want to bring out the point about Africa because there's a misnomer. There's basically a lie that Ham is Africa. We as Israelites, we have to stop teaching that. Because if you open up the Bible and you go to Genesis 10 and you see the lineage or the pedigree, if you will, of Ham, you can clearly see that his descendants, his posterity shows you that the continent that we call Africa to this day was not the only place they inhabited. If you know anything about the Babylonians, who did the Babylonians come from? Cush. The Cushites, or who they would call Ethiopians, or trying to say that's the Cushites, they were in Mesopotamia, right? They're Hamites, but they were in Mesopotamia. That's not Africa. They was in Captor. They was in the Mediterranean Sea. They were the sea people. They were the Philistines. They were our neighbors. The Canaanites are in the Middle East. They were our neighbors, right? So how in the hell is Africa, the continent of Africa, representing Ham? That's an old racist, white supremacist theory. It's not true. All you got to do is read Genesis 10, Amos 1. Read about where these people were. Read about where Captor was. Read about what the sons of Kemet lived. They didn't only live in Africa. Now, let's get into the presentation. Let's get into the information right here in the book Ancient History by Anthony Lau. It says, Josephus reports that Epher ben Abraham is believed to have conquered Libya after being sent away by Abraham. Now, Josephus, we know he's a renowned historian, or a renowned Jew historian, and he was a man of color for the viewers out there, because you got Vocab Malone and G. Consciousness want to ignore the ethnic background of the Jews and how did they look. He was a brother. He got captured by Rome. We know the history behind that. He was in a revolt. All of his men sacrificed. They basically killed themselves, and he was the last one and got captured by Rome. So he serves under the Flavius regime. That's why his name is Flavius Josephus. And we know his work is accredited, and we know that a lot of scholars check Josephus's work, and they use it for validity. They believe in it. So why won't they bring this up? Josephus reports that Epher ben Abraham, the son of Abraham, is believed to have conquered Libya after being sent away by Abraham. So that makes Epher a Shemite, because I want you to follow, because the doctrine is everything Negroid comes out of the continent of Africa, and the continent of Africa represents all Negroid people, and that represents Ham. That's the lie. It says he joined up with a Greek hero by the name of Hercules. Hercules married one of Epher's daughter and had a son, Diodorus. Diodorus had a son named Sophon. Africa is believed to have been named after Epher ben Abraham. Let me read that again, because a Shemite, a Shemitic brother from the line of Abraham, okay, the son of Abraham, is where you get the word Africa from. Why? Because that's actually a Latin morphology from the Latin. Africa. The Ica means town of a people of in Latin. So you put Epher and Ica together, Africa or Africa. The people of Epher. That's where the name Africa comes from. And then newsflash, black people. The people that want to go around calling themselves black and melanated and think that Africa is their homeland. The word Africa comes from a Shemite named Epher. And guess what? The whole continent wasn't called Africa at one time. It was just the northern region where Libya is, Numidia. Those places were called Africa by Epher and his descendants, and later on the Romans, because they named it after the people that lived there. The Epherites. That's why they call it Africa. That's why you had that Latin connotation right there, because the children of Shem, the sons of Abraham named Epher, always inhabit that land from the ancient days. So again, Africa is believed to have been named after Epher ben Abraham. As it happens, Hercules is closely related to the Dorians who invaded Greece. Josephus, the Jewish historian, also wrote about these two famous captains of Hercules in Antiquities. Now, I want to touch on that real quick, because I did quite a bit quite a few videos on Esau, and you learn that the Romans actually came from Libya, and they came and invaded the Etruscans. Because for all you people that don't know, the Edomite Romans, the pale skinned Romans, are not native indigenous to Italy. If you read the history, as I brought out in my prior videos, you could clearly see that they invaded those lands and made them their own. They colonized Europe. Let me just cut it short so I can get to the point. They colonized Europe back in the day, just like they colonized America, they colonized Africa, they colonized everywhere they go. They did that to Europe first, okay? And they came from Libya, okay? When you read the history, check out my videos on Esau, the history of the Red Nation or the Red people on Genesis 49ers to get more detail on that. So, here are his words. Abraham after this married Keturah, Genesis 25, by whom 6 sons were born to him. Then Josephus named Midian, a son of Abraham, who begot Ephah and Ophrim, called EPHER and EPHER in the Bible. It is related of this Ophrim that he made war against Libya and took it, and that his grandchildren, when they inhabited, called it from his name Africa. And indeed, Alexander Polyhistor, which was a man captured by the Romans, and he gave his attestation, his history, his records about this. A regular historian, a secular historian, gives his attestation to what I hear say, who speaks thus: from the other two, EPHER and Japhran, the country of Africa took its name. This is what's written in history. See, but you brothers and sisters have been duped not to follow the historical records and find out the things that have been written in the past. You look at the ancient men as they were dumb. You don't look to them to get instruction on race, on nation building, none of that. You just go with the flow, whatever everybody else is teaching, you follow that. But we here at Genesis 49ers, we are here to break the mold. We are here to teach our people the truth and give them the sources. Okay? So it says, from the other two, EPHER and Japhran, the country of Africa took its name. Remember, Africa is of Latin composition. It comes from the EPHER people, Ica, meaning the town or people of. Because these men were auxiliaries to Hercules when he fought against Libya and Antiochus. Josephus understood that the two famous captains of Hercules were the grandsons of Abraham. Hesperus, who was later exiled in a family quarrel, was the biblical EPHER. Atlas, the strong man and astronomer, was EPHER. It is his line that continued to control the Western Mediterranean for several generations. The traditional Hercules or Heracles, Greek form, lived in a time at the end of the Argead period of Greece, 1250 BC or 900 BC, depending on the historian, at the time of Euthreus, the king of Argos. And we know who Euthreus is. Euthreus in Greek means red. The red king. And who are the red? Who's the red people? Edom. That's how you say Edom in Greek. Eurythreus, the king of Argos. Okay, and what does Argos go back to? Argos goes back to Amalek. It all goes back to Esau. Okay, if you got it, it's a fascinating story about a man named Hercules. Because when you look at these Greek gods and stuff like that, they actually have history behind it. They're not just legends that was just made up. That they are tied to history. Some people examine the legend of Hercules and tie it with Esau. Now, there was different Hercules. We know, of course, the Hercules here with EPHER is a different Hercules, but very interesting records are found about this guy, how he is very similar to the story about Esau. But nonetheless, you see Euthreus, the king of Argos, which means the Red King. That's where you get the Red Sea from, right? The Hercules mentioned here is one of the early persons by the same name, because you have multiple Hercules in the epochs of time. But the purpose of me bringing this out is to show and prove that the word Africa is Shemitic. It's not even Hamitic. So when people look at Africa as some kind of Negroid base, according to secular information, the Shemites are white. according to secular information. So if they're going to say that Ham is all Africa, that doesn't make any sense according to them. But we know better because we know Shem is a dark and lovely people. Word to Rabbi Akiba, I believe, he said that in his Chronicles, in his Midrash, that Shem was dark and comely. See, that's why, like, when you hear Vocab Malone and all these people talk out their neck, G Con or whatever his name is, because I just got done watching that debate. They don't know nothing, or they ignore the facts. Shem is said to be dark and comely. You have another Jewish rabbi from the 1st and 2nd century, which we know were Negroes, stating that the Jews look like boxwood. Now, boxwood is brown. They were melanated. Ashkenazis today are not melanated. Okay? All black people don't come from Africa. Quit teaching that white supremacy, that Blumenbach theory. And for the viewers that don't know who Blumenbach is, Blumenbach was, I believe, a scientist in the 1800s, 1700s. I might just do a video centering his work and where you get this color equals race thing from. Now, granted, in the ancient days, you did have races that were named after colors. Like, you had Edom, was named after the red. You had Cush, which means black. Kem, which means hot or dark. Stuff like that. But he completely turned that on his head and basically said all people from Africa are black. They're the black race. Native Indians are the red race. And which that is very derogatory because you're saying that they're redskins because of the scalping. That's where it comes from, the scalping of them. And they say any Polynesian or Chinese is yellow. And that's basically where you get the color code. Caucasians are white. They came up with that. And it's the funny thing about it, Blumenbach didn't even know the people of the world. He was not familiar with the people of his time that was all over the world to be making those claims because there's dark-skinned people all over the planet. It was then, it is now. That's black people in Korea. That's dark-skinned people in Korea that belong there. Dark people in Iran that belong there. Not slaves, because as soon as you see a dark person in another country, you automatically assume they had to be sold there as slaves. Because in your mind is wired to think like the supremacists. Like what Nas say on the Untitled album. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists until Noble Drew Ali started dropping that consciousness. And that's what he came with, on the album. But that's the problem. We thinking like the colonists, right? We have their minds in us. Word to Get Out. I watched that movie Get Out, and it was very creepy, but it has some truth in it, because we are walking around as Edomites. Their spirits are in us. Their minds are in us. You thinking just like them. You got to think about it. You thinking just like them. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists until Noble Drew Ali started dropping that consciousness. But we Hebrews, we Israelites, so I guess we'll say Abba Bibbins until Abba Bibbins started dropping that consciousness. But we can clearly see with the historical records that everything that we've been taught here in this land, in Babylon the Great, is a farce. Africa does not represent Ham. It represents Shem, the name itself, and the people that was in northern Africa at that time. Because again, Africa wasn't the whole continent of Africa. Africa of old was not the whole continent of what is known today as Africa. It was just the northern region of Numidia and Libya. Those portions. That continent had many names. Upper and Lower Ethiopia at one time. But the point of this video is not all Africa doesn't represent Ham. Some of the Hamites stayed there, like the Egyptians of Mizraim. Mizor, we know that because the Arabic historians still call it Mizor, or the two Mizors or the Mizraim. Right? We know that. But they went other places as well and started civilization in other locales outside of what we know as the continent of Africa. And here's another thing. Guess what? Surprise. Newsflash, you Negroes here in America. Your homeland is not Africa. EPHER. You do not belong to EPHER. You do not belong to Ham. You are Shemitic, though. You are Shemitic. You come from the holy line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You are the Israelite that the Bible speaks of. That's the underlying thing. That's the whole point of me breaking this down. I'm tearing down that stronghold of Africa and Afrocentricity that you have been taught and been force-fed ever since you was brought into this earth, to show you that you are from the Middle East. Lebanon's our home. Okay? Jerusalem's our home. We are Sepharad. We are the Sephardic Jews. Okay? We are the Sephardic Israelites, because Sepharad means to be separated. We are, who's being separated? We have been taken from our land. They were called Sephard. Why? Because they were sold into Spain, Sicily, and different areas by the way of ships. How did you Negroes get to America? Not all of us, because we know some of us was already here. And that's a whole different topic. Some of us was already here because the Israelites were the inhabitants of America. We discovered America. Understand that. And I got videos covering it on my channel. Dark-skinned, melanated Israelites already here on this side of the earth. And if you don't have melanin, that doesn't mean you're not an Israelite. Melanin. See, here's the thing. I got to do a video on DNA and phenotypes. Because there's something called incomplete penetrance. Meaning phenotype doesn't always match genomes. Meaning how you look doesn't always match what's inside of you. It's not going to match your pedigree. It's not going to show your phenotypes are not going to always show. Why? Because you have mutations and different things that may vary, that change how you look. Look at The Rock, right? It's funny. The Rock said he would run for president, and he know he'll get the minority vote because everybody would just think, all the minorities just think he's one of them. Because it's hard to tell what he is. You can't just judge somebody phenotypically. Look at Logic. His father's black as Wesley Snipes. You can't judge people phenotypically. It's something called in science, something called in the study of genomes, incomplete penetrance. Let that be understood. So no, we are not from Africa. We're from the Middle East. That's our homeland, right? Yeah, we had other domains. We had Mexica, the Mexica Kingdom, the Aztec Kingdom. We had the Inca Kingdom. We had the West African kingdoms, the Bantu Kingdom. We had that. We had Spain, Andalusia, under the Moors. We ruled Russia. We understand that. But our homeland, headquarters, is Israel. Israel, right? So with that, I'm going to conclude the class and the lesson. Basically, the topic was Africa is not Ham, and all Negroes don't come from Africa. The true meaning of Africa comes from EPHER ICA, the people of EPHER, or the town or city or dwelling place of EPHER. That's where it comes from. That's what the records attest to. So we're going to stick with that. Genesis 49ers signing off.